Bar for Bar album reviews. Spillage Village, Spilligion. Spilligion is the debut album from the collective Spillage Village. This is comprised of Earthgang, Jid, Mereba, Black, Benji, Hollywood JB, and Jurdan Bryant. This project was originally teased almost a year ago when Earthgang asked, "How you feel about Spillage Village project?" And immediately I was pretty excited because I've been a fan of pretty much everyone involved independently, so to have them all come back together definitely piqued my interest. This project comes in at a total runtime of 49 minutes with 12 tracks, so it is a bit longer, but I feel it's definitely worth it though. And after listening to it all weekend and the last couple of days, I'm left wanting even more. One thing to note is that you won't be hearing everyone that's part of Spillage Village on every track. They're more just kind of sprinkled throughout the project, and you'll mostly be hearing from Earthgang and Jid. This project as a whole makes many references to different religions, religious events, and people, but uses them in a way to show you what makes up Spilligion. This isn't necessarily meant to be a religion or anything like that, but rather it's meant to give the listeners pieces of the religions referenced, which ultimately leads to a more spiritual feeling album. There's really no points at which the project felt preachy in any way either, so that's great. The album starts off with the intro, Spillville, which features comedians Desi Banks and Country Wayne, as well as spoken word legend Big Rube. This is a pretty good intro because it starts off with a discussion about how the pastor has hella money, and it kind of insinuates that he's a little corrupt and lies to the congregation. Big Rube then tells the two that it really doesn't matter who's delivering the message. What really matters is that the message is being received and delivered, but he's still going to run up in the church. You know what I mean? The first song on this album is Baptize, which was also the second single for the project. To baptize someone is to cleanse and purify them so that they can be granted admission into the Christian church. But I think of it more of like in a general sense, where it's like a cleansing or teaching, like rather than just specific to a religion. Then this track, the main focus is really the treatment of black people in America. Johnny Venus, or Olu, talks about police brutality while also bringing up the idea that people change and how some authority figures don't necessarily acknowledge that with the lines, "Fighting for freedom ain't no more asking, judge ain't never gonna forget him for when he was trapping." Jid carries on the religious theming with his verse and makes reference to Adam and Eve, David and Goliath, and sacrificial lamb Burginis. Throughout his verse, there's many double entendres that are just fun to listen to. Dr. Dot then combines the themes from both the prior verses into his, which really gives the track a solid ending. The next track here is Solemn Sing, which has Mereba as the main voice on the track. There are additional vocals that are provided by some of the other members though, but she, again, is the main focus here. The song is very much a weed song, but it also talks about a relationship that is only further deepened when they're smoking together. A psalm, if you're unaware, is meant to be a holy song or hymn, but is also one of the books in the Bible. This makes sense in the context of the song because Mereba brings up weed, which you can use to put you in a higher state of mind, similar to how religious songs can connect you with the Most High. Ehla, or family, is a track about family, which is literally the definition of the title. This track carries on the religious and spiritual theming that we've been getting thus far. And it really touches on peace in general, too. Not just limited to family, though. Jid talks about things that can be occurring at family or neighborhood events, like random beefs that lead to someone taking shots, and how he's been working so hard that people are telling him to take a break and eat or something. Hollywood JB takes this family idea beyond just blood and includes people in his corner and how he'll ride for his people. The final verse from Johnny Visa starts off with a phone call to a higher power where he's like, "Yo, you see what's happening here?" and prays for power to get through it. I also appreciate the commentary on how the rich are probably going to be the first ones to get the vaccine when it's finally available and out there, and everyone else just kind of has to wait. This brings us to the track Mecca. Mecca is the holy city in Islam, but also is often used in reference to a lot of important places in different cultures, like sneaker culture, hip-hop culture, stuff like that. The chorus of the song mentions some major cities and how they want to spread love around the world. Asking the listener to follow them is meant to be seen as just asking them to join them in the spread of love. These guys have listeners all around the world, and if they all come together, they could really just spread love everywhere. And, it just feels like a very wholesome and very uplifting track. The track Judas which is actually really interesting to have after a very uplifting track, touches on the ideas of betrayal, much like the Judas from the Bible stories. The track features Jid, Chance the Rapper, Ari Lennox, Masego, and Buddy, with the only 2 rap verses being from Jid and Chance. With Jid's verse, he makes reference to how this person that he's been involved with doesn't necessarily believe that he's not talking to other women, which would have been a form of betrayal. He also talks about later on how they're offended that they're just sitting on the bench rather than being part of the game. Chance's verse is a little bit different in the form of betrayal that he makes reference to. He talks about how, even though he's very pro-black, not everyone sees him that way and often tell him that he doesn't act black. The religious theming continues on with the track Ocean. Ocean is the goddess of divinity, femininity, fertility, beauty, and love. And this track is about relationships. However, it's more about the emotional aspect of them rather than the sexual part. Each of the verses here shows the listener just how much each artist cares for and appreciates the other person in the relationship and how they just have a really deep connection. There's really not much else to say about the track that isn't obviously said in the track itself, but it's definitely a vibe. These ideas carry on to the next track, Cupid. This song has Johnny Venus and Black talking about the women in their lives. Johnny Venus starts off the track with his verse on how she's her own woman and how when things go wrong, he does his best to make things better, or at least try to. Black has a much shorter verse, but he manages to touch on how he's trying to wife it on the low and how he didn't expect himself to settle down so soon. Lucky Day also does provide a great chorus here. The next track is Shiva, or Shiva. Shiva is known as the god of destruction / destroyer of evil in Hinduism, but also refers to the 7 days of mourning after a funeral in Judaism. I will lean more towards the second definition though, just because it fits what's being said in the song a little bit more, because there's a lot of reminiscing and moments of comfort throughout the track. That comfort comes from either talking about what happened, but also a little bit about the reminiscing, like we see in Olu's verse where he says the reminiscing and illustrates on construction paper how he feels. End of Days was the first single for this project, and this track did a great job of setting expectations for the project when it was released back in June. It sets the scene of the end of days, but instead of making it sound like a biblical end of days, what we get is references to things that are happening all around us and stuff that's been happening for a while now. This song is more of a social commentary and looks beyond some of the things that would put you in a daze due to its complexity and uncertainty. It's kind of like when you finally open your third eye and you're able to see through all the material things in life and finding out what really makes you happy, as well as being able to see and notice the things that you can work on or help change around you. The third single for Spilligion is Happy, which is named after the god of the Nile. This reference makes a lot of sense almost immediately with Mereba's opening lines where she retreats to the trees. The Nile was home to early Egyptian civilization where they utilized the soil and water given by the annual flooding of the Nile to grow crops and prosper. This makes all the references to trees, seeds, and berries, and just growth in general make a lot of sense with this track. The final track on this album is Jupiter, which could be named after the Roman god Jupiter, also known as Zeus in Greek mythology. This track is really just accepting and preparing for your eventual demise, but not fearing it. Sonically, it's a bit weird though, because it's a little bit of a departure from the other songs, but the message is fairly in line with the rest of the project. It really does feel appropriate as an outro / final song because the whole project had this feeling of melancholy and kind of like an apocalyptic sort of vibe, to me at least. Overall, this was a very good project and I fully enjoyed it. And this album is definitely a product of 2020 because of everything that was said on it, ranging from police brutality to COVID to racism. However, that's not to say that these things weren't talked about in years prior, though. The album is titled Spilligion, and the tracks were religious references for a reason. They're not trying to convert us or have us join some sort of cult or anything like that. We as a people just need to understand that everyone's here for the same reason as everyone else, and that's to live. Finding peace whichever way you need to is essential, especially during these times of uncertainty. Or, you can just do whatever too. My favorite songs on this album are Baptized, Ehala, Judas, Ocean, and End of Days. This project was hella solid though, and I look forward to whatever else they have in store for us in the future. The only thing I would change is if we can get the rest of Spillage Village to have more of a voice. I know obviously Earthgang and Jid are going to be the prominent ones in general, but I would like some more from Benji and Black and Mereba and Hollywood JB and Jurdan Bryant. I mean, although they were pretty prominently featured and they were there during the whole sessions, I just kind of wish they had their own, or more of their own verses. Anyways, that's all I got. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of this album, whether you think it's some weird cult or just a spiritual journey that everyone really should be looking at. Just like and subscribe if you want to see more content and reviews like this too. And thank you for watching. Please stay safe out there.